Coming to you from the BDS Studio 3, baby. Actually, I had a few people ask me about, you might have noticed since maybe episode 360 or so, somewhere above that, that there was like slight fluctuations in the sound quality. Now, there are times where, all right, so what happened is around episode 360, I actually ended up getting another microphone. It is the Blue Yeti X. This is an awesome microphone. I don't know. Yeah, because before I got my hands on it, I checked out a lot of reviews about it. And a lot of the reviewers on YouTube were basically saying, oh, it wasn't that much of an upgrade from the Blue Yeti, which is, the original version. Everybody kind of knows the Blue Yeti because it's so popular in the podcast and streaming space. And they said it wasn't that much better, so it wasn't, worth the asking price. But that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because I was basically using, I was using something superior to the Blue Yeti on basically every metric already. So I didn't quite grasp what the fuck people were talking. When I read that, I was like, I don't know. And the funny thing that pretty much most of these reviewers neglected to mention is that, and this is going to lead to like where you might have heard a fluctuation in sound quality at times. None of them, or everybody that reviewed it seemed to neglect mentioning that Blue, the company that makes the Yeti and the Yeti X, of course, they have a custom software. It's called Sherpa. They also have where their software works through Logitech, which I don't know what the deal is there, but whatever. I mean, I don't mind Logitech as a company. In fact, I have a silent mouse here, the M355, that is great. I mean, because it is so damn quiet, because this mic is, fairly sensitive. And so it would pick up a lot of clicks. I'm sure you've heard them. Anyway, throughout most of 2019, through all of 2019, or almost all of 2019, I was using what equates to a standard Blue Yeti. Okay. And you can hear, or at least I feel, you can hear a pretty dramatic difference between like pick an episode in the 340s and then compare it to, the later episodes. And I think there's a dramatic improvement. Now, again, I have, do I consider myself a professional podcaster and that my opinion on podcasting equipment carries a little more weight than most? Yeah, I think that's true. Frankly, I have worked with, well, let's just call it what it is. I've worked with multi-million-dollar companies on getting them ready to appear and get interviewed on podcasts and other venues of media. So yeah, I not only do I make money off of my podcast, but also I get paid by, fairly large companies. Okay. Not Microsoft, not like massive companies. I guess they'd still kind of fall under small business, even though they are multi-million-dollar companies, but they're companies that, that pay me to show them how to do it right and how to podcast right, from equipment to, how to handle, well, basically everything, that encapsulates podcasting. I kind of talked about this in episode 368 of Sovereign Tech, where, I mentioned about the importance of posture and things like this. So yeah, I would say, not to pat myself on the back or be braggadocious or anything, not that that'd be new for me, but yeah, I would say what I have to say, in my opinion, on podcasting is something that actually, matters by certain metrics. So anyway, the Sherpa software that Blue offers with their Yeti X is fantastic. It tells what I like to say, and I've said this about many Bluetooth devices, because this is true for Bluetooth headphones as well. But this is true for, a lot of devices that has firmware and software involved, okay, which would include Bluetooth headphones, USB microphones, etc. XLR, different story. But, software effectively can tell a pretty good lie. Okay. And what I mean by that is like a pair of Bluetooth headphones can sound they can have a lot more bass or just a richer sound than what the actual drivers, what the actual speakers within them can actually offer. Okay. So that's why I say it tells a pretty good lie, right? a microphone with great software behind it, USB mic with great software behind it, clearly can tell a pretty good lie, because I think the quality, when I have all the settings set up in the Sherpa software, the quality of the Blue Yeti X, I think is tremendous. It sounds as good as, and I've had some pretty sweet setups as far as, studio equipment in the past. I think it rivals some of those setups. Now, I mean, it's not going to be as good as, having a Shure microphone, like a $400 microphone, with a condenser and all this other stuff, or a compressor, I should say. But I mean, it damn does it sound good, in my opinion. The thing is sometimes I forget to turn on, and this is to answer the question. Sometimes I forget to turn on the Sherpa software. It still sounds good. It still sounds, and again, this is why I think these reviewers, I don't know what's going through their heads. When they say that the Blue Yeti X isn't that much of an improvement, maybe they just don't know how to tune audio. I don't fucking know. I mean, granted, I've been doing this for almost 10 years, but even just stock without the Sherpa software sounds eons better than any USB microphone I've used. Blue Yeti, which I used to use the Blue Yeti when I needed to, when I'd be remote or something. It sounds better than my H1N1. I think it sounds better than my H6. I mean, and that's something that CNN uses, like the H6. I mean, that's really high end. It's the best sounding equipment, certainly, that I've got right now. And it's for the price. I think it's well worth it, especially if you have the Sherpa software. And I think it sounds better than, I don't know, like most of these podcasters or YouTube guys, like I listen to them. And it's not that impressive. I mean, so I don't know what the hell they're talking about, but anyway. Now, if it's an episode of TIE Fighter Renegades, we do that over, we're not streaming, but we're doing that over video, streaming, and we're using Skype or whatever we happen to be using now. That, might have a lesser quality because it's going through, I'm downloading it from, say, Skype's servers, right? So there's that, as far as why that sounds that way. But if it ever sounds a little bit different, the real reason that it actually sounds different is I probably forgot to turn on the Sherpa software, which is not a case with this episode. And, I'll try to make sure that's not a case going forward, because there's very particular settings I like to have on it. Maybe these people just don't know how to dial their voice. Like they don't know how to work with their voice. I'll guess that maybe that has something to do with it. Speaking of something else that finally came, and it's sitting right here with me in the BDSM Studio 3. I'm looking at it. It is The Art of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Just arrived. Frankly, and so as of this recording, March 31st. By the way, the reason that this is getting released on March 31st is that I don't want to spend a second on the internet on April 1st. I hate the internet on April 1st. I'll probably spend time in the Telegram group, which of course you can join. Link is in the show notes for it. I'll spend time there. I will ask maybe in the morning, hey guys, gals, Z's, please refrain from, how can I stop anybody? But I would say, please refrain from, any, sharing any April 1st, any, April Fool's bullshit. Cause I'll turn off the group for a day if I can. Cause I hate it. It's the dumbest ass day. And ironically, I see after the fact, I see plenty of stories that are basically fessing up to that now. Like, okay, we got to stop this. This is just getting stupid. It's interfering with the normal modes of gathering of information, that we go through these days. So, it's one thing when it was, pre-internet, I guess. Now with the internet, it's just become, if I were to use a colloquialism, it's become a public nuisance. And I hate the internet on April 1st. So anyway, not that I'm not a person that doesn't do their due diligence. I like to think that I do most of the time. So it's not like somebody's going to necessarily, pull a fast one on me or anything, but I already can't stand 90% of certainly what I see on Twitter. In fact, that number could go much higher there. Or what's on most news sites, or, what comes out of, frankly, most people's mouths. Not all, love you, Sovereign Tech listeners, but it's already bad enough, to add any salt to the wound of what comes out of people's mouths or what gets typed away from their fingers. No thanks. No thanks. So that's why this is getting released on a Tuesday instead of like the usual Wednesday or, whatever day it'll happen to get out. Speaking of TIE Fighter Renegades, we do plan on releasing another TIE Fighter Renegades in short order. Very excited to do that. Always fun to work with Rob. And got great response from our last episode. I know you all love it when Rob and I get behind the mic. But anyway, I was going to say, and something I know we will talk about, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about it here, but the art book for Rise of Skywalker, I know we both got it. I mean, we both got it because we both fucking pre-ordered it like a year ago. It's supposed to come out in December. I mean, this is a scandalous book. You'll hear Rob and I talk about it. This book is literally a scandal. It got released early in South Korea, and then Disney basically told bookstores and whoever else in South Korea, hey, anything you haven't sold, fucking ship those copies back or burn them alive, because that came out in around December or January or something like that then. And a lot of people, rightfully so, were like, well, whoa, that's a pretty strong reaction to the release of a book. What the hell is Disney worried about that's in that book? So I can tell you this. I mean, after briefly looking at this book today, it's been a very, very busy day as far as work goes. I mean, COVID-19 folks. But I certainly looked page by page. I didn't spend a ton of time like studying each page, but I certainly looked at every single page quickly. A couple things stand out. One is that in fact, we talked about this recently on TIE Fighter Renegades. There is none of the shots of Rey with the double-bladed blue lightsaber. None of them are there. None. I mean, they don't exist in the book. They're gone. There's some stuff that points at like kind of the leaked alternative art that was online. That might have been more from Colin Trevorrow's script that's in there, but none of the double-bladed Rey stuff. Not there with the blue lightsaber. Her wearing Luke's outfit from Return of the Jedi, or what looks similar to Luke's outfit. None of that is in there. And those were a couple of the best. I mean, that was some of the best art that I had seen leaked online. And I'm pretty sure, Rob can correct me when we actually talk about it on the show, I'm pretty sure those are from the Korean version. Maybe not, but I thought they were from the Korean version of the art book. Very weird. And I think Disney is engaged in a lot of lying around this book. I mean, it's so funny because it's just a fucking art book. Why does it matter? And I mean, it's really getting weird with Disney, right? I mean, stuff is getting treated like state secrets, and they're giving orders from on high like they're state secrets or something. It's all very fucked up. But at first blush, I think the book, especially without a lot of the alternative stuff, and as usual, like, most of the Screen Rant and whatever bullshit websites out there, they're making clickbaity headlines about what's in the art book. It's not that exciting. And that's the bottom line. This book is not exciting at all. Like, the alternatives that you got to see in the Force Awakens art book, that was awesome. I mean, you got to see all kinds of wild stuff. At that point, Disney, for whatever reason, wasn't engaging in the art of, of cover up, right? We didn't need a Project Blue Book against Disney to figure out what the fuck is going on over there. It looked boring. It's like, like, okay, well, that was different. Oh, Babu Frick looked different, or he was another character. Then he got mixed into this one. Oh, Poe was treated a little bit differently. I mean, there's nothing really, really exciting there. As to where the art that was leaked that was apparently referencing Colin Trevorrow's, or Trevorrow, however you want to pronounce it, script, is wildly exciting, sexy, in my opinion. I mean, it's really, really great shit. So I cannot recommend buying this book. I'm sure somebody like at getcomics.info or something will end up leaking it, and, or not leaking it, but posting it online in the public library. Wait for that. Like, don't buy that. This is not worth owning for any reason, in my opinion. I haven't read it yet, sure, but just like looking at the art, especially knowing how the movie turned out, none of it is really engaging. If there were alternatives, kind of like Force Awakens did, or just about every other Star Wars art book, and I have them all, has done, that could have been very interesting. But oh well. So, and you know, just to put a fine point on it, before somebody says, well, there's no point to releasing, you know, like all this alternative art and stuff that didn't end up getting used in the movie, that's horseshit, because Disney has been using Ralph McQuarrie's concept art, which is basically what these art books are made of, has been using Ralph McQuarrie's concept art from the 70s and 80s. They've been making new shit in the Star Wars universe for years now, based off of alternatives that Ralph McQuarrie drew up. So you're only robbing the future of your own franchise when you engage in this kind of, again, it smacks of a government cover-up. You know, I mean, you'd think JFK got shot for this book to come out. It's so goddamn weird. So anyway, really, you know, and Rob even said, Rob's a much wiser man than I. And he even said in the last episode of TFR, he's like, Brian, you know, manage your expectations around this book, because it ain't going to be anything special. And he was totally right, as he often is, you know. Oh man. Anyway, I'm sure we'll talk more about it on TIE Fighter Renegade, so no need to go any further with that. Got some interesting questions to get into here, and I want to deep dive on them. Got a lot of great response actually from episode 368 of Sovereign Tech. You're going to get episode 369 pretty quickly. I actually planned on it coming out today, but we'll wait till after April 1st, and then we'll release it. And then you will get episode 370 by next Monday. And a lot of people ask, well, what are you doing with episode 370? You hinted at something. Well, just hold out. All right. Anyway, so let's get into this here. Here's the question. Okay, got it. Hey, Stallion, I have a question and addendum to your awesome recommendations for a bug out bag and bug out equipment. First, what do you recommend for a sack to hold it all? A sack. You got to have the sack. Let me keep reading here. And I'll get, because there's another question baked in with this, and I'll get to both of them. Somehow I think you neglected to cover this. Did I? Well, anyway, let's keep going. Second question, while you recommended crank and solar chargers, is there anything faster? I've used the solar charger, and it takes forever to rebuild its charge to capacity. Anything else you can recommend? I also just want to thank you for your open-minded coverage of COVID-19. I've heard many of the wild theories, put that in quotes, as you say, from other media, and you're right. I'm as concerned for my mental health as much as my physical. Keep it up, man of tomorrow. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one that's hearing that, because, I mean, especially coming from, well, shall we say independent or maybe alternative media, the alternative ideas around what's going on with COVID-19, some of them are, holy fuck, like, where did you get that? And anyway, I appreciate that, because also getting that message of support, you know, like I said, for some reason, people find it controversial for me to suggest that it's not the New World Order, that there are multiple forces taking advantage of this. I've always said this about the concept of the New World Order or one world government anyway. That's, I mean, just the way that humans operate, healthy or not healthy, just does not allow for that. You know, like you can never get everybody under one whip. It's never happened in history. And I can't imagine how it could start happening now, especially when ultimately you're just empowering everybody's greedy impulse at the moment. Like I just, that's mind boggling to me. Now, can there be multiple? And if you want to go with a nefarious term, can there be multiple shadow organizations, or, you know, things that equate to a leadership body, a government or something like that, you know, behind the scenes, multiple, like a bunch of them, like New World Orders or something like that? Yeah. Okay. That I could believe that there are competing groups that, I mean, you know, I love these movies, and they don't get nearly enough credit, because they're actually better comic book movies than almost any other comic book movie could claim to be. And it's a fantastic trilogy, in my opinion, from 1 to 3. The Blade movies with Wesley Snipes, phenomenal movies. And they seem to always get left out of top 10 lists for comic book films, because basically you're either a DC Comics apologist, or or you just think every comic book movie is effectively Marvel. And whatever, that's nothing new. I mean, when I was growing up reading comic books, and even today when I still read comic books, and I do all the time, I've been dealing with it forever, where people don't realize that DC and Marvel are two separate companies, right? that Spider-Man and Superman don't exist in the same universe. I mean, there's so many people that don't know that. That's fine. They don't have to know that, because they don't have to be into that. It's not their bag, and rock and roll, baby. Okay. But the Blade movies, as genuinely great as they are, especially the first one, I think is a near perfect film. I mean, it was doing a lot well before, people had a lot of these concepts that we can even think of. I mean, I've brought up the fact that I think the first real comic book movie, I mean, not counting the 70s Superman, the first real comic book movie that followed the comic book formula was actually Rocky 3, which that's not a comic book, but it follows the formula that comic book movies would go with, to this day. But yeah, the Blade movies always seem to get left out, and I cannot imagine why, because they are the opposite of forgettable. Wesley Snipes was fucking brilliant, top of his game. Anyway, I bring this up. There's a lot of great quotes actually from the Blade movies. In fact, Blade 3 is like the only movie where I can actually stand Ryan Reynolds, because fuck that guy. He's so fucking annoying. He is really like, he is the poster child for, I don't know, what I find so annoying in so many people, where they just like, could you actually be serious for a minute? I don't mean to sound like a Canadian or anything, and I say that with no disrespect, quite the opposite. But like, could people actually like be fucking serious? It's like everything's a goddamn joke. Everything, and anyway, can't stand Ryan Reynolds, because like, you can never take the guy seriously, and I don't want to, because I think he's a joke, just like pretty much the rest of Hollywood. So Wesley Snipes, anyway, in Blade, he has this great quote where he says, he's telling this gal, because it's all about vampires and everything. He's the day walker. And he says, the world you're living in is just a sugar-coated topping. There's another world beneath it. Now, I think that's a great quote, great line, great way of explaining things. That absolutely, yes, I firmly believe that there are things going on underneath the veneer of the internet, the veneer of what looks like, everyday goings on in meat space. And you have, I mean, here's another great quote. This one's from, I want to say, is this from Star Trek? Is this from The Next Generation? I think it's from the episode titled Conspiracy. That, when people think there's a conspiracy, there isn't. Or, when they think they've put together a conspiracy, it's actually not there. The only real conspiracies are the ones you never know. And I think there's some truth to that as well, is that we can't really guess what's going on. I mean, we can't even like really try, like you don't know the names of the people that are, for what the average person on the planet considers to be powerful. You don't know the names of the people that actually are. It sure as fuck ain't Jeff Bezos. I mean, that idiot's getting his WhatsApp account hacked. Are you kidding? Call that power? Kiss my ass. If he was powerful, if he was, like really somebody that had some stroke, well, I mean, he has some stroke, but if he was somebody that like really was, knee deep in things, you would never know his name. Anyway, I'm kind of getting off track on this conversation here. Just don't give me any crap about, it's the new world order, or it's a one world government, or it's saying, no. You want to talk to me about like multiple groups going at it behind the scenes? Sure. I'll believe that, and I think that there's fair evidence to suggest at least the, it's like the shadow to the person, to see the shadows, right? I mean, like, I think that there's evidence to suggest the shadows of the movements of these kinds of organizations, but it's plural, it's organizations. Okay. There's not one group pulling the strings. That's I mean, it's fucking impossible. It really is just, well, whatever. People don't read history. That's the biggest problem with so much. They don't read history and they don't pay attention. So anyway, let's keep going here. Yeah. So, all right. Anyway, yeah. Thank you for your support on my open-minded coverage. I appreciate that. So let's actually answer your questions here and see if we can get to a separate question from another emailer. And then we actually have a dynamite elm of the week to get into. So here we go. Okay. First, what do you recommend for a sack to hold it all? Somehow I think you neglected to cover this. I don't know that I did in the Have a Corona episode. I don't know if I glossed over like what kind of bag to use. Well, I mean, I guess we'll get into it. I would recommend a backpack. Okay. I mean, and this is a funny thing, right? Because when you're traveling, okay, now a lot of people responded pretty positively to what I was recommending as far as working from home. I've also talked about, because I'm also a very, as much as I am a seasoned work from homer, it sounds like a Simpson episode. I am also a very seasoned traveler. Now, as a traveler, I like to use a duffel bag as much as I can, as much as I can help out with that, or, help with that. Sometimes if you're carrying that much baggage, I mean, you can't. But as long as you keep your trips to within 5 days or so, and generally, I think you can get away with, fair-sized duffel bag of sorts, that's kind of over the shoulder, right? Just a single strap, doesn't have wheels, even though now, I mean, seems like you can buy almost any kind of luggage with wheels of any size. So I don't know. I guess some of that stuff could work too, but I usually like to have, again, a duffel bag because it's very versatile, right? Because you can carry it around town if you need to. I mean, some people are able to do it in a backpack. I can appreciate that too. There's some good sized backpacks out there. That's for damn sure. But that's travel when I recommend a duffel bag. As far as, like a more survival situation and having a bug out bag, yeah, it really should be a backpack. And in fact, it should be a backpack with plenty of straps on it, strap around the waist, perhaps across the chest. And I'm not going to like recommend a specific bag. I'm going to give you a tip though. Something we talked about in the Have a Corona episode is that there are, I mean, it was kind of the reason I got asked to do that episode. Actually, there are, things that you can take away from, say, what militaries do, that could be useful in these kinds of scenarios, right? Because certainly much of being in the military is all about survival of a type, regardless of getting around ethics of these things. So now the military, U.S. military, I believe specifically, I could be wrong on that. The British might have come up with it first. Who knows? But there is a system called MOLLE, okay, which is an attachment system for accessories and adjustments and everything to, whatever pack you happen to be carrying. In fact, MOLLE ends up getting used on vests as well. It gets used on all kinds of things now. MOLLE it's an acronym. It's MOLLE. Okay. And it's I think modular lightweight load carrying equipment. Like the O is not an actual word. It's just part of modular. So this looks like, I don't know, it looks like an apple pie. Okay. Where it has like the crisscross kind of shape going on it. And it allows you, it's a bag that will have these like exterior loops. Now it's not hook and loop. Okay. It's not Velcro, but it'll have these exterior loops that you can strap stuff into. Okay. Like a bunch of different things. Like you could strap a canteen, you could strap a flashlight or with a sheath, as long as the canteen, flashlight or knife or whatever you're trying to carry has a sheath that's compatible with what you would call a MOLLE bag. Okay. And so I would get a backpack that has MOLLE straps on it. And that allows you to add on whatever you need. It's a pretty brilliant system in itself and very stable. And I mean, granted, you can really you can go too far with it. Okay. Where you can add on way more than what should be there, but it'll be baked into, basically it'll be like stitched into the central stitching of the bag. That's part of what makes it, that's part of what makes it like really, really sturdy and really, really solid and really dependable. And that's why the militaries use it so much. Now, the irony is, okay, and this is kind of an important point. This is something you won't often hear. Certainly I can say, I know for a fact, actually, the U.S. Army does not want you to know this, even though it still gets out now and then, right? Like if you remember, during, say, Operation Enduring Freedom, or, Afghanistan or Iraq or anything like that. If you remember, there were on the news when, the quote unquote liberal agenda was against the war at the time. Anyway, I don't even want to get into all that, but when they were against it, they were coming out and saying, hey, parents are like buying their children or their sons and perhaps daughters who are in the military. They are buying them bulletproof vests and sending it over to Iraq for them, because the military doesn't just give you those things. Now that is true. Okay. That is accurate. But it goes a little bit further than that. It's not just that because there is a perception, and it's certainly one I had when I was going into the military, was that, you get the best of the best when you go into the military, right? You get the best equipment, you got the best guns, you got the best blah, 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 whatever. That is absolutely not true. Not only do you not get everything that you could have, in fact, now this part's kind of well known that, yeah, a lot of these, like XE and some of these quote unquote mercenary organizations equip their security guys better than the U.S. Army equips its own infantry. That's not untrue at all. Okay. What I don't think people realize, not only that you don't get like certain kinds of equipment, like you don't always get bulletproof vests, you don't always get, I don't know, whatever. The equipment you do get is actually pretty substandard. Like it's made as inexpensively as possible. Okay. And I mean, the military, the U.S. military, the Army and so on, they're actually pretty thrifty about it, because what they'll do is when there is used equipment, which, where does the used equipment come from? They will sell it off to like Ranger Joe's, or they'll sell it off to other, surplus stores. Right. And they know, that's exactly what you're doing. And in fact, like they'll have, varying, privates or other low, service people of low rank will actually go to like, to these surplus stores if they're near a military base, and they'll even do the stocking. And so, it's pretty amazing. So bottom line being is that military equipment, the very equipment that people go into war zones with, is not high end. Okay. So for example, that's why I'm not going to like point out an exact bag for you. You can go, on Amazon or wherever, Bud K, I don't know. And you could buy, actually, I've noticed Bud K's prices have gone up significantly. That's pretty interesting. Anyway, you can go to these sites and you can buy, like a really high end Molly backpack. You could spend a couple $100 on that. Hell, The Rock makes one for Under Armour that's like $250 or some stupid amount of money. Okay. And, here's the rub. Like, there's nothing really about those bags in my mind. And I've owned some of them where like, wait, why is this $200? Like the exact bag I went into war with probably cost $20 at the time. And now, okay, even if it's double the price, fine, it costs $40, So, take your pick. If it makes you feel better thinking somehow you've gotten a better quality bag for $200, okay, how am I going to dissuade you from that? But, a solid, the way that a Molly bag even works in the first place, again, it's baked right into the stitching. It's not something that's necessarily going to go loose. You can get a great quality bag, again, yeah, probably for $40. What's Rothko going to sell you a bag for? 30, 40, $50. And I guarantee you that's the same. Hell, it might still be better than what service people going into war zones are using and wearing. So you're good. You don't have to spend a ton of money on a bag. And maybe if I didn't recommend that, I'd have to listen back to the episode. I don't exactly remember. If I didn't recommend that, Well, that's probably why, because I mean, that's all down to personal taste, but those are my only recommendations is make it a backpack. It should have straps on it to really hold it to you. Uh, like clipping straps of some kind. Um, if you have a bunch of good pockets, I mean, the other thing I would, again, if we're talking about it like a bug out bag, are you really going to put a computer in there? Maybe a tablet, but just about any of them can hold a tablet well enough, So, I mean, you can ignore that whole aspect of it where you don't need, oh, can this fit my 17-inch MSI? You're fucking running into the woods. What the fuck are you doing carrying around your 17-inch MSI? Anyway, so you can ignore that part of it. So you're going to save some money there. But that's it, and have the MOLLE attachments, and that way you can, tailor it to what else you want to add to it, because obviously I didn't cover everything and everybody's different in what they need. So that's that. There it is for bags. That's it. Have straps, make it a backpack, make it a MOLLE bag, let it have MOLLE attachments on it. Now the second question here, let's see. Second question, while you recommended crank and solar chargers, is there anything faster? I've used a solar charger and it takes forever to rebuild its charge to capacity. Anything else you can recommend? Well, I'll stick to the second question anyway. So I hear you. And there's great, flashlights that have like either a solar charger on them that's really tough, or that'll have like a crank on it. Or I know some of the equipment I recommended in the Have a Corona episode, like the radios would have solar panels on them, or would have a crank where you can charge stuff. You're not wrong. In fact, I mean, I'm a fan of some of these solar chargers, like these portable batteries from like Anchor or something like that, that have a solar panel on them and can charge with solar. You're totally right. I mean, the reason these things aren't more popular is because they do take forever to charge up to where they could be anything meaningful to give you more than like half a charge on your average smartphone, to say nothing of like a tablet or something like that. So you're not wrong about that. Again, we're thinking emergency situations. So, having a solar charger, like a dedicated solar battery, that can charge USB devices, I still think is a good idea, to have that. But again, you're not wrong. And the cranking, that takes forever too. You're totally right to charge up a battery. I mean, you'll be cranking that thing all fucking day long. You're not wrong. Really what you need, I mean, because so there are a lot of like emergency kits or like lighting options or powering options where it'll have a somewhat larger solar panel, right? Not something that you could put in your pocket, or that might even be difficult to put into a backpack. It'll have a larger solar panel, and that will seem to always have a charge ready to go for you, and plug in your smartphone, and it'll charge it overnight or over, a couple of hours or something like that, maybe. Now, the reason that those seem to always have a good charge ready for you when you need it is because here's the trick. They're sitting out all day, right? The solar panel is sitting on the roof of whatever structure. It could be a tent, I don't know, whatever, or a cabin, I don't know, but it's sitting out all day and it's just always charging. It's not something you're carrying with you like you would, say, a small battery that's pocketable that happens to have a solar panel on it. So the real problem here is that it needs to be something that's constantly getting exposure. Now, you might be able to pull something like that off if you attached that little portable battery with a solar panel on it to, say like to your MOLLE bag. Okay. Or there are some other options I think that we could consider here. But the thing is that, or what makes it difficult is that getting that kind of, appreciable charge power, it's got to be something that it's got to be convenient to just have in use anyway, right? Like the larger solar panel that perhaps you'd have on top of a cabin or tent. So there was something, in fact, a guy who, in fact, he's not alive anymore. Now that I think of it, geez, wasn't an old dude either. He showed me this at an event. This is, I want to say 2-3 years ago. And it's called the BioLite. And I know that these are still, they still exist. This company's done very well. I think it was originally a Kickstarter. And then they ended up coming out with, now I think they have the BioLite 2 or 3 or something like that. I think it's the BioLite 2. And I'll put a link in the show notes if I can think of it. But with them, you can, basically what this is, it's a, I don't know, take your hands, even if you have decently sized hands, and just kind of put them together, like, you know, in a evil manner, like you're making an evil scheme. This is about how round this BioLite thing is. And what it is, it's an open, it's a grill basically. Okay. But it has a battery pack attached to it and a converter attached to it. And you can put twigs in it, literal twigs, like the smallest of sticks, right? You're not making a serious fire, but you will make a fire with it. And in fact, you have cooking attachments that you can put on it. It's not as small as a Halcyon stove, but it's getting there. Anyway, Halcyon stoves, those are great things to keep in your bug out bag too. If you don't know what those are, a Halcyon stove is, you make these out of cans, right? Like out of like a soda can. Don't drink soda, but out of a soda can. And, you know, you put some alcohol in it and it's like a little pocketable stove. They're wonderful. I've talked about these on Sovereign Tech over the years. Anyway, you just kind of cut the tin a bit to, or the aluminum, whatever, to, you know, to have little holes there. It's pretty cool. It's a great idea to look into. Anyway, with BioLite, you can put these little sticks in there. You light them on fire. Okay. I think they have pellets now that you can use too, that are obviously, you would have a much more efficient burn. And this will, you can attach a grill to it so you can cook on it. You can attach like a kettle to it so you can have coffee or tea or whatever, or boil water anyway. Obviously, you know, it's just twigs. So it's an efficient fire, but it's clearly not going to be as powerful as, you know, some kind of bonfire or even large campfire. Regardless, I think you could probably, if I remember right, you can boil water in about 8 minutes. You've got boiled water. That's not bad, you know, especially when it's something that has a very good, consistent flame. But what it does is it takes the excess heat and it uses that to charge a battery connected to this little canister. And then this battery, of course, has USB ports on it and you can charge your devices with it. And it works very well. And it's something that you'd probably end up using quite a bit, again, to cook, to heat water, to do whatever. And so it solves that problem of where it's not just a battery sitting out, you know, getting charged and it's doing it very slowly. It's something that is in use. It doesn't have to be an extra piece of equipment, because something people don't think about is, you got to bring, utensils. And I suppose that's some stuff I should have covered in that episode as well. K-Bar has the best hobo knives and little equipment that you could get anywhere. So I definitely recommend checking them out. But you need cooking equipment of some kind, right? Well, this can kind of do all that, and it can be that battery, and it charges. I want to say, I think it does charge faster than crank or solar, as far as like the average solar battery, or pocketable battery that has the solar panel on it that you get from, like I said, like Anchor or whatever. I don't think Anchor offers them, but you know the kind that I'm talking about. It's what everybody keeps in their, purses or in their car, that whenever they need an extra charge on their smartphone, you know how that goes. So BioLite, I think, is something, and it's BIOLITE. I'd recommend looking into that. Not cheap, but I think that's a viable option to consider. Is one of those. So anyway, we're at 44 minutes already. And I had another question. It was a question about sex. I've been saving this one. And I don't think we're going to be able to get to it here, because it would take it would turn into a very, very long conversation. So I think I'm going to hold off on that. But I did answer your questions about recording equipment. I mean, I'll tell you, if you're setting up a studio and you want something simple, I mean, I've got this Blue Yeti X on a mic arm, and it does the job. You have to get a little converter kit for it to fit the Blue Yeti, but it does a dynamite job. And I think the audio quality has improved significantly. Other people have told me the same. Let me know if you disagree. I'm always willing to hear, because actually, there's times where I've actually changed so I used to, a lot of the old episodes up until about maybe episode 300 were all variable bitrate MP3s. And then somebody said, it's like, I don't know what's going on. Like, it seems like the episodes are skipping or something like that. And I actually did lower the overall quality. And this is even in the original BDSM studio, where I had a full layout. I lowered the overall quality to like 96K. That makes it a smaller download size, which I think is good. But also I made it constant bit rate at that point. Instead of variable bitrate to resolve that issue. And that issue hasn't happened before. So I always love hearing from listeners. And I test this stuff out quite a bit. I use different types of headphones to test it all out. I always love hearing from listeners. If you have comments on audio quality and quality overall, that it's something that really matters to me. So please feel free to send in those kinds of questions. Anyway, why don't we go ahead and do our album of the week, and then we'll wrap up this Q&A. So the album of the week that I've got, I think I covered this band last year, because I just discovered them last year. And I thought, I was like, wow, what a badass band. Now, if you heard me recently talk about Heat, the band Heat, H.E.A.T. Which I think did I hand them album of the year? I think I already handed them album of the year for 2020 because it was just that damn good. It was so fucking good. Well, this album's not going to beat it. I can tell you that much, but it's a similar sound. It's a modern melodic rock or AOR, inspired sound that they deliver here. Now, admittedly, new Nightwish came out, and I was checking that out too. And I will get to reviewing that in an album of the week. We will get to that. But this is one where just coming at you with that high energy. And I think that's something we really need right now. So I want to recommend this. And the band is Dynazty. Now it's kind of spelled like Dynazty. It's Dynazty. And I'm pretty sure I reviewed one of their albums previously. They've got that really, like, it's like an 80s almost glam rock sound, but it's today. And so it has more modern production values. But I enjoyed Fire Sign, Titanic Mass, Renatus. I think they've had some awesome albums over the year. And this is actually, I think this would technically be, I think this is their 7th album, because they've been doing this since 2009. That's pretty good. 7 albums in a decade. That's not bad. And more or less has been the same group of guys, which hasn't been true for some bands. Like when we reviewed the latest album that came out last year from Santa Cruz, which was let's just say it was a disappointment. But anyway, Dynazty, Dynazty, they came out with an album called The Dark Delight. And I think this is pretty much track for track. It's a very intense, very fun album. The opening track, Presence of Mind is the title, is really, really solid. Just comes out. The nice thing, what I like about Dynazty is they will sing about, the sex and rock and roll and all that. And I think that's great. They'll get into that. But then on some songs, in fact, many times it is their opening track, but on some songs, they'll get into some deeper shit. And Presence of Mind, I'll admit it, it's a very philosophical song in a music landscape that doesn't lend itself to very deep lyrics. I feel like you have to do it like Ellen and I do and just listen to Dream Theater all the time or something, but try and get that kind of intellect or intellectual stuff into your music. But this is awesome. Presence of Mind, great song. Going down the tracks, again, all of it all has a very good, very solid, consistent sound. I want to say, I think that the song Waterfall, which is track 7 on this, that's probably the best song on the album. In fact, it has this weird, I don't know how to describe it. There's this out of time and I mean that in the musical sense, not in the physics sense. There's this like out of time drum beat that comes in that's really out of place. And when it hit the first time in the song, like I was startled. Like it hit me like, whoa, what the fuck was that? And then it comes back again, and you can't guess when it's going to drop because, like I said, it's out of time musically. Okay, it's not in sync with the rest of the melody. And it's a very interesting trick because it really makes you pay attention. But then it's also a very melodic, it's a great song on its own. Lead singer's got a voice like a canary. I mean, just great singing voice. These guys, I think they're out of Finland or maybe it's Sweden. Anyway, that whole scene that is well ahead of the curve because now melodic rock and AOR, not that I'm unhappy about this, but it's really invading America. I guess it's because most American music has like absolutely no fucking meaning whatsoever anymore. So, they're just getting anybody else that speaks English from around the world to come in and try and give people something. I don't know, but I don't know. Most people, I don't think there's a whole conversation I want to get into around this. I'm going to get into it in a future Sovereign Tech that has to do with Twitter. And I really will get into this, and it'll actually also bring up a lot of a previous conversation I wanted to have about Twitter, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about Dynazty. Again, the album is The Dark Delight. If you don't mind some cheese, okay, even though I think there's a lot of depth to the lyrics that they're delivering here, if you don't mind some cheese and you can appreciate some good melodic rock or, AOR, I think you're in for a real treat with Dynazty. In fact, listen to all of their albums. They get progressively better. Like I think, Fire Sign, I don't think was necessarily as, I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Titanic Mass, but Fire Sign was still a solid album on its own. But The Dark Delight, this is probably their best album to date. It definitely beats Titanic Mass, in my opinion. This one's going to be on, in the cycle, quite a bit. I mean, there's a lot of great albums that have been coming out just in the past couple of weeks. I mean, there's that new Mastered Boot record that I know I shared that in Telegram. A lot of people got in the Telegram group. A lot of people got excited about that, which fuck yeah, that's some great shit. All kinds of great stuff that I will be reviewing in future albums of the week. So we will get, we'll definitely get to those, but check out Dynazty with The Dark Delight. I mean, to get a Heat album and to get a Dynazty album in the same year, that's pretty damn good. Very excited about that. Something I'm wondering about with COVID-19, like there were some major tours announced this year that I thought were already supposed to start up. Like what's going on with the Motley Crue, Poison, Def Leppard tour? Any news? I'll have to look into that. Bon Jovi had a major tour coming this summer. I guess they don't have to cancel that yet. But yeah, there were some big tours coming up, and I wonder what's going on with those dates. Anyway, we'll be keeping an eye on that, and we'll find a place where we can squeeze in that conversation at some point. So check out The Dark Delight by Dynazty, or I keep wanting to say like Dynasty. I think that'd be a better band name, but Dynazty, just spelled funny. So check it out. All right, that's it. I will wrap it up for this week's Q&A. Again, you're getting it a little bit early. And all kinds of fun stuff to actually come out just this week. I'm really excited for it. So I will see all of you on the other side.